indeed. Welcome back to another episode of Canada's F1 Show. This is another race weekend. My name is Dames. I'm joined by team manager for Pro Racing Ontario, Darryl Timmers, and we're here to discuss the epic Italian Grand Prix in history.
Yes.
Not so much yesterday.
Yeah. it was a good race otherwise, but
this had DNA to be a great race. It
and
did, like with all the
it.
grid penalties and the mixed up order.
Yeah.
And then in the end, it just kind of...
I just don't
went away.
FIA again.
Okay, so let's start right there, because I did actually want to start right there. For those that don't know or you're watching the review right now, we have Max P1, Leclerc P2, and Russell P3. It ended under a safety car. But even before that, I want to talk about the rules and restrictions that could be limiting Formula One in terms of race potential and entertainment value. When you see 9 guys take grid penalties for wear and tear items, let's say, that really does kind of hurt the sport, I guess. I mean, like I said, it had the DNA of a great race because everybody was mixed up. But in the end, after lap 1, the usual suspects were at the front of the grid.
Exactly. you know? Honestly, they do it just to keep the budget down for the teams. If they did an unlimited budget like they were for the longest time, it's going to be a massive separation again from the front teams to the back marker teams. So the only reason they really put these penalties on them is to make sure that they're not just replacing engines every single race. They want to make sure that the components and everything has a time, a life to it, and they're using that full lifespan before they replace it. So I get why they're doing it. It definitely helps the back marker teams keep up with that front marker team, just because of the budgets. And you have a team like Williams and Haas where they're struggling to put a full season budget together, and then and now you're going to be like, okay, well, we're going to open up the rules and let everyone just do what they want to do and throw new motors and new this, and that's why they don't have spare cars and all this stuff. It's just to back the budget down for everyone, right?
Right.
I think it's a great way of doing it. I just think there's always room for improvement. I think, some of the stuff like the penalties and grids, I like it, mixing up the grid like that. But then, then there's got to be a way that we're going to have to try to fund these lower end teams and not just give all the money to the high end teams, because they'll just always stay the high end team and the lower end team will stay the lower end team.
Right.
So I think that the rules are there to help the lower end teams, which is great because you can see that the field is a lot closer this year. There isn't, that one team that's lapped after their second lap or whatever.
Right. That's true.
Yeah.
That is true. I mean, the mid-tier teams, and even up at the sharp edge of the grid, I mean, let's be honest, Red Bull, head and shoulders above
they're gone.
Everybody.
Yeah.
Right? In the quest to make everything a little bit more cost-friendly and efficient, we do have some mid-pack battles going on. Alpine, McLaren, to a lesser extent Mercedes and Ferrari.
Yeah.
They're very, very, very close
Yeah.
in the constructors' points now. But then even with the back marker teams, right? And this is interesting because we're looking at Nick Vries, who was literally driving for one back marker team, jumped into a race for Williams this weekend because Albon had a health issue. And he finishes in the points. The reality of it is, if it wasn't for all them 9 grid penalties, probably wouldn't have finished in the points.
Yeah.
But he finished in the points.
Yeah.
And he had a very, very strong race overall.
He did. He showed why he should be on that F1 grid. He showed up to a race, didn't get any practice. He did FP1 with Aston Martin.
30 minutes in the Williams, let's say.
Yeah, max. He went straight into qualifying, really. And to out-qualify your teammate in your first qualifying session in that car that you've never been in. Sorry.
Go Tiffy.
Yeah. It's kind of a slap in the face. Like, that's kind of the reason that people are under fire right now. It's to show, like, the guys like Piastri and De Vries that deserve to be in spots where, there is some money people there that, hey, it's not like we're saying they don't have talent. They can, if they didn't have talent, they wouldn't be able to finish an F1.
I don't know, man. I mean, like, jury's out on 1 or 2 of them. For sure, 1 of them.
Yeah.
Because, like, if you're looking at this thing, right, there was a stat that went up after De Vries got points on his opening race, and congratulations to him. And it was basically doing the tally of, like, George Russell and Latifi and Albon and De Vries. You're looking at so many races before they put the car into the points to get money to develop next year's car. If Albon and De Vries are on Williams this year, the complexion of that team, I think,
would be
is far different than
agree.
what we're looking at in terms of constructor standings.
I totally agree. If De Vries was on that grid, that Williams car would be getting more and more points. You know, Latifi struggling a little bit, and he has his times, and he has he shows brilliance a couple of times where, you know, he's out qualified George, or he's out raced George, or he's outpaced George. You know, the outright talent of De Vries kind of came out on top there. You know, it's the difference of an outright talent or someone that has been trained to be an F1 driver. There's a difference there. There's an outright talent where you can throw a guy into anything and he will win.
And they're quick.
And then there's a person that will take some time to put the development in, the coach in, the time with the team to get to where they are. You know, it's not it's a natural talent to a trained talent, I guess you can say. And, you know, with Latifi, he started racing late. I personally know his coach really, really well. He's a very good coach, and he has trained Nicholas to become an F1 racer. He you know, his coach has joked with me and was like, you know, you don't have to have talent to win an F1 race. You just have to be trained properly. We always got into arguments about this because I think, you can get into F1, and anyone can get into F1 if you're trained properly, but to take that W, it takes a lot more skill to get that W out of a car. I also think, you know, De Vries, Piastri, all of this talent that comes into like next year with Piastri being on grid and most likely De Vries being on the grid because of how he raced this year, you'll see how those teams that they race for are just going to elevate to a next level by having talented drivers.
So who gets dropped by the wayside then?
Then it's got to, at that point, you leave Albon in the seat and you get rid of Latifi. Keep him as a reserve.
No, not in terms of drivers. I want to know in terms of teams. Like when you look at Williams, Haas, Aston Martin, right? With those two drivers, Albon and let's say De Vries, right? Like we can definitively say they finish in front of those two, right?
Yep.
At least.
Yep. No.
And then there's other teams like Alpine.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think Alpine's one of the top teams right now. I think they're the mid-pack team. I honestly
best of the rest.
Best of the rest.
Yeah,
I think they're
they had a tough weekend this weekend, but
the top three is the top three. It is what it is. Everyone knows Ferrari, Red Bull, and Mercedes are going to be there. McLaren and Alpine are the ones that are always going to be around to pick up the
periphery.
They're going to get there when something happens to those Red Bulls or Ferraris or stuff. They're always going to be there to get those wins and always going to capitalize on those issues. I hope this new rule package is going to end up pushing those teams a little bit closer to the top guys, because really and truly the pinnacle is Red Bull right now. And if they don't get to that pinnacle, at least if they can get to like McLaren's level or Alpine's level or let's say Mercedes right now, you know, not when they were dominating, but like Mercedes right now would be a great field, you know, like you'll never really know who's going to win the race. Right now we know Max, as long as he gets into race pace, he's going to win.
Like after lap 1, he'd made up 4 positions.
Yeah. And
he was in third after lap 1. And it was just like, oh boy.
And yeah, you see it all the time. Like you saw how much pace he had, how he was able to just drive around and pass everyone whenever he wanted.
Yeah.
I also think a lot of the drivers let him go because they're like, I'm not going to be able to battle this guy.
Well, so it was true. The overtakes weren't necessarily hard earned.
No one blocked him. No one defended him. The only people that were defending was the Ferraris, and it is what it is. Sainz is half a track behind him. But
Sainz had good pace.
Sainz was
that first stint. He was ripping. He was. I don't know what. It kind of just fell by the wayside, I guess, in the second stint. But that first stint from Carlos Sainz, obviously he took an engine penalty too, so he had a fresh everything, fresh unit, fresh. So you expect to see that pace. And I think for Ferrari at their home race, it was a good weekend. I really think that P2 was the maximum for Charles. He started on pole. They do everything at it. They didn't want to get caught off guard again during the VSC. So. And in the end, like, they tried everything.
But at that point, you know, you're trying to stay ahead of Red Bull. But really and truly, Red Bull didn't need the track position at that point. They knew they had the pace over Leclerc. So I don't know. I personally, I wouldn't have pit him when I saw him pitting. I was like, really and truly.
I was taken aback as well.
I I honestly think that Ferrari right now is like, they're so on the back foot that they're just reacting. They're just like, oh, let's just do this. I don't want to be behind. And it's
listen to how many plans they have. They have like the alphabet of plans for the drivers. And not only that, we mentioned this a few pods ago where it was like there's no confidence on the pit wall.
There isn't.
I like a team that's 50-50.
Yeah.
What do you think about this? Sometimes, here, let's do this other times, right?
Not what do you think about this?
Now it's just, what do you think about this every time? And Charles, you can hear him in the car. He's just kind of like, yeah, all right. Like, no, it's okay. You know.
But that's the thing. They have to realize that the drivers know the least amount during a race. They know nothing that's happening on the track. They know the car in front of them and the car behind them. That's it. They don't know what's happening on the track. So when they start asking them, hey, do you want to do this tire change? Do you want to put this on? Okay, like, what do you guys think? You're on the wall. You know what's happening in the race. I'm just driving right now.
Right.
And that's where, it's hard because the driver can go, okay, yeah, these tires feel good, but they don't know if the hards are faster at that time. They don't know if the softs are faster at that time, the mediums are faster, what the tire deg is of other cars and what they're doing. So the team coming to them and be like, hey, we're thinking about putting hards on. What do you think? Okay, sure. Why not? Like, you know what I mean?
And the thing about it is that's the purpose of a race weekend.
Yeah.
It's another race weekend. It's not another race podcast.
Yeah.
It's another race weekend. It's the Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Exactly.
And the Friday FP1, FP2 into the Saturday FP2, those are all data collection things. They have all the technology. They have all the sensors. They have all to make the decision come race time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
it's true.
it really just demonstrates the lack of confidence in Ferrari. They were at their hometown home crowd. I didn't like to see the booing for Max either. I really don't. That's passionate sports.
That is.
Understand. And kudos to Max because he handled that like a champ. He didn't make any remarks about it. He kind of just acted like it wasn't going on. But that was really all. It was a shameful display for Formula One, in my opinion.
Especially when Ferrari went and outpaced him in qualifying, got the pole, like legit pole. It wasn't like Max was going, the positions back. Like Leclerc got a legit pole over Max. They should be happy about that. Yes, whatever happened at the end of the race happened at the end of the race. They were kind of, waiting for them to have that 1 lap shootout or the 2 lap shootout. It never happened. So they're obviously probably a little bit worked up about that. And then Max jumps on there. It could be them booing Max or it could be them booing the FIA,
Well, I don't know. I heard a couple in the Max interviews. I heard them booing him after quali as well. Yeah. So I feel like while I hear what you're saying, there's definitely some animosity towards Max Verstappen. I mean,
there is definitely.
He goes from his hometown race where it's just
you can't do anything wrong,
right? To all of a sudden going to Italy where it's like, So anyways, but we've seen it before with Lewis and all of that. Lewis acknowledged it. I think the high road is probably the best road in that sense.
I agree.
But let's talk about the end of the race, as you just mentioned right there. It finishes under a safety car. Fresh wound from the finale of 2021. Even Lewis Hamilton made mention in the presser afterwards. He's like, oh, they did it how they were supposed to do it this time. What a surprise. How can Formula One rectify that? Because now we're looking at 2 instances, although this one has way less in terms of scale and magnitude
and stuff like that.
But the conversation is now here, and we have this influx of fans over the past 2-3 years who've seen this twice now. They're going, I don't like this. So like, is that a red flag moment? Is that
okay? They had 6 or 7 laps to take his car off the track. Is what I don't get. Like, if it was 2 laps to go, awesome, finish on the checkered, I get it. But when they drove around for 3 laps without even a car being beside the Ricciardo's, broken down car to get that crane, or take a crane to get it out of there, they wasted 3 to 4 laps. And then the safety car goes up and picks up the wrong car. So then there was another one. So then now they have to waste another lap or 2 to get them back into order. And then by the time they're sorted, they're like, oh crap, it's the last lap. FIA screwed up because they didn't put the safety car out the proper time.
So it's FIA procedural error?
Yes.
In your opinion?
In my opinion, yes. If they sent the safety car out, they picked up Max, there's no reason that a car that broke down on the side of the road, that's not crashed, just broke down, couldn't get picked up in 6 laps.
Regardless of if it was stuck in gear.
Yeah.
Regardless.
But they're going to pick up a crane. A crane's going to pick it up anyways. It doesn't have to be pushed out of the way. It just needs to be picked up and taken off the track. 6 laps to do that? Like, come on. Like we
went from Zandvoort, where there was literally a crane in every single corner, to this. Yeah.
And it's like, FIA, like, come on. Like, I'm not saying that, oh, you robbed this, you robbed that. No, but get your shit together.
Yeah,
like, you guys had a pace car that went out 3 laps after the safety car started. And then the pace car went out and picked up second place, not first, or third place, not second, not first place. Like, what are you guys doing?
So we had guys come in during VSCs and safety cars. Just say, how do you feel about that?
I'm open to it. I like that. The VSC kind of throws a little bit of a mix in there, and I just wish they let them race. Like, if they had gone and it was a 2-lap shootout with softs. What everyone wanted in Abu Dhabi.
Yeah.
They had the chance to be like, hey guys, I know we screwed up.
Yeah.
Let's do this.
Yeah.
And then it took them 4 laps to get a safety car on the track during a safety car.
Yeah.
Like, I was just like, what are you guys doing?
Yeah, maybe there's a way where it's like within a 5-lap window of the end of the race, a red flag is shown just to finish the race.
I would be open to that too, Right? Maybe do what NASCAR has adopted, like a green-white checkered, maybe saying, okay, if there's 5 laps left, the yellow flag comes out, we red flag it with 3 to go, and we do a green-white checkered. You get the green, you come around, you get the last lap, you come around, and you get the checkered.
It's like when you equate it to other sports, it would almost be like an overtime.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Where it's like,
and that's what they call it. NASCAR calls it overtime.
Yeah, and I do like that, like the adoption. Nobody's a fan of watching a motor race and under a safety car, which is why Massey
did what he
did last year, but they did it in a way in which it wasn't fair at all. They let some cars go, they held some cars back. That the safety car was supposed to do one more lap, and then it just came in. Like, there was a lot of
half a lap to the green was like, okay, we're going green this time by. All the lap cars go by. All this. Okay, now green.
It's because they wanted to get that race in there, so they rushed everything else in order to get. Whereas yesterday they followed it by the book.
Yep.
And that was the end result. Now, in Abu Dhabi, obviously, we had an electric and polarizing final lap of racing.
Yeah.
But I want to see it where it's like, within the X amount of laps left, safety car comes in, we red flag it, and we give you 5. Everybody can do what they want. Yeah. The order is what the order is. Yeah. Rolling start, standing start is probably best.
Yeah.
Because it's a little bit more shootout.
Yeah, exactly. Let's go.
And everybody's on the soft, and then it turns into a kart race.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like track position doesn't matter as much. DRS right away. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. I think there are ways to modify it that could make it more exciting. And hopefully, we were just talking about the teams who have all the data and the this and that. The FIA should be looking back at this stuff and be like, how can we improve the experience for the fans there?
Yeah.
Because now you have 300-something thousand people leaving who are just outright pissed because they spent all this money to see it finish under a safety car. Like, okay, and then you have X amount of people watching over the, all across the world, Canada, Brazil, wherever, watching it. And it's just, that's not how it's supposed to finish.
No, and like, I don't know what the FIA was thinking there. I don't know what happens in the background. I just look at it from my perspective. And I think FIA screwed up. Like, yes, I get it. Why you finished under yellow? If it was 2 laps to go, then I get it. Cool.
Yeah,
they had a
lot.
They had 6 laps, and it took 4 laps to get the safety car in front of Max.
And that was the thing too. A lot of teams were kind of like waiting to see what was going to happen in order to make their decisions. Yeah. And some teams went right away. Like, I think we saw Leclerc, Russell come in, and then Max did a lap and then came in. You know what I mean? So, anyhow, overwhelmed, underwhelmed, surprised. The Italian Grand Prix.
Overwhelming's got to be Vries, my boy.
What a showing.
Yeah.
I was surprised. I didn't know how old he is. That guy's 27.
Yeah,
right?
He is old.
And that's old by
racing standards.
Formula One standards, right? But to think this guy's won everything and he's just been on the sidelines, shows up in a Williams, lands points on the... It's like, what would he do with a weapon?
Exactly. And we've been saying... we've been talking about Nick for 2 years since the start of this whole podcast. And I've always said that guy needs to be in an F1 car, and... it showed like that. He was on point. He wasn't physically fit to drive this car yet because he wasn't training.
About his shoulders.
He had to get his crew had to come help him out of the car after the race because he couldn't lift his arms. Like, but that just shows the physical demand of driving an F1 car and then taking someone that is so talented and does all the training and does everything to be a race car driver, because he's still racing. He does Formula E. He's one of the top drivers right now.
Yeah.
And he is a factory Mercedes driver. And then all of a sudden he gets thrown into an F1 car and he still performs. It just shows.
Not to mention, 2 days before he was in a different car with different systems and different gadgets and all. And then, so yeah, man, kudos to Nick DeVries. I hope that the people over at Williams, at the very least, I think a lot of eyebrows are up. Yeah. The driver market is pretty well open, especially when you look at a team like Alpine, maybe like the Gasly thing. But if Gasly leaves, then all of a sudden there's something at AlphaTauri, and that's a whole back end thing. But guys like DeVries need to be on the grid. Underwhelmed.
I want to say, okay, this is going to be a non-driver thing, but I'm going to have to say the FIA, period. Like, just how they finished that race, it's like, come on, guys, man. Like, you could do so much better. You can do so much better, and you have so many opportunities to have a great finish to a great race, and you just blew it. Like, it was like, I was sitting there at the like, I turned to my wife, and I was like, are you kidding me? This is literally how they're going to finish this race right now? Like, we're 4 laps left, and they're already talking about a checkered. Yeah. And they haven't even picked up Max yet. It's like, I just don't understand. Like, it's just so frustrating. Yes, I get it. FIA has a very high pressure, very strategic position in motorsports, and they have to do everything by the rule book, and they have to do it is a lot harder than everyone thinks. Yeah. But when you have 6 laps to do this,
you know what I didn't like about them not throwing the red? I saw the Formula One cars drive by that cherry picker. Yes. And that is dangerous. That is. We've seen Jules Bianchi, rest in peace, he lost his life to one of those because of that. Yep. So that right there was a super shock to me. I don't care how slow you guys are going. Yep. We've seen this go the worst it can go. Yep. So as soon as I see that, I'm going, nah. Red flag. For integrity of the sport, driver safety, and paramount to everything else. Not to mention history, I think a red should have been thrown on that simply for that.
And I agree. And I bet you if you ask some of the drivers, they were probably like, what the hell is this crane doing on the track when we're on the track?
Facts. You know? And the thing about it is they're trying to keep the temperatures up. So they're on and off. Yeah. And this ain't no road car. No. When they go on to keep the temperatures up, they're going from 0 to 200 in a second. Yeah. You know?
Like I don't know. I just think FIA needs to they need to shake up. They need to figure this out. Yeah, you know, a lot of these, how they have a different race director here and there, and they go to this director and this director, and then they use the cameras, and it's just like, guys, we need a consistent person that makes the same call every time. Yeah. This inconsistency is just going to ruin the sport and piss a lot of people off, and it's going to chase everyone back away again. Yeah. And they need to figure this out, because all it's going to do is hurt the sport. And if it hurts the sport, then their income's starting to go down. And honestly, the new owners, all they care about is income. They don't care about history of the sport, which they need to change. They don't even want, like... How are they going to get rid of Spock? Yeah. The #1 race that we all go, this is the pinnacle of F1 tracks, and they're going to get dropped off the calendar?
Like, I respect the fact that they've, you know, the Netflix deal and this and that. Like, I get it, but the reality of it is he said he don't want no more teams in the sport. Yeah. And that don't even make sense to me. You should be trying to pad out the grid as much as possible.
This is what I don't get, is like when they say, until these grids get bigger, those drivers like De Vries and Piastri, who have the potential and talent to be in an F1 car, are never going to make it into F1 because there's no cars to actually be in F1. If they can make the grids bigger, those backmarker teams that are very small, like Art and Carlin and Andretti and all those teams that are going to start out, can take that guy like Nick De Vries and be like, hey, go to our team, you're going to be our driver, you're talented, we need a talented driver, not just a money driver to get into this sport. And the bigger fields are going to help with that. You know, when you look at a NASCAR field of 40 guys, there's very, like that talent pool in NASCAR is very big. And some of the top drivers in North America are there because they had the talent and they had the ride to get to where they are. In F1, at the end of a season, there's only 20 spots left. So if those 20 spots are full by the end of the season, the guy that wins GP2 or F2,
you got to sit.
He's going to be sitting doing nothing for a year. So
that's not good.
That's not
good.
And
you know what happens too, right? 100% agree on everything that you've said. But what happens also is the guys who have the most talent that can't get a seat will go elsewhere. Exactly. And all of a sudden, you are expected as Formula One to be the top tier level of motorsport, but the talent pool may not may not be in there because they're tied up elsewhere. Yeah. And you know what? They're making great money over this way. Mm-hmm. The level of competition is up because all the guys they used to race with couldn't get seats over there, so now they're all over here racing over here, right? Like imagine Norris, Albon, Russell, Leclerc, Verstappen couldn't get seats. right? Imagine they couldn't get seats and they were all in IndyCar.
Yeah. IndyCar would be stacked.
Well, but what do you think? What do you think the level of competition in IndyCar would be? Do you think they would want to come to F1 and race against guys like Latifi?
Yeah.
I
agree.
You know what I mean?
If I win a championship and the field's full of the backmarker guys, I'm not proud of that. But if you go to an IndyCar championship where there was going into the final round this winter,
yesterday,
the final race was yesterday. They had 5 guys that could win the championship going into the final race.
And here we're looking at Max. He could win the championship with like 5 races left.
It's just like I don't know. FIA's got to figure it out. They have to realize that making the fields bigger gets the talent pool a lot bigger, and then then the competition starts going up, and it's prestigious again. Right now it's not as crazy as a talent pool as it needs to be, because the best drivers, some of the best young up and coming drivers, are not on the grid.
Don't have seats. They just don't have seats, and that might be the biggest surprise.
Yeah.
Out of all of it.
Yes, I agree. So, yeah, I agree.
It's the overwhelm and the surprise is courtesy of one person who literally got the call the morning of to go race.
Yeah, and like the fact that that was fast. Like outright fast.
He was quick.
He was chasing down Gasly.
He was on Alonso, bro.
Yeah,
he was on Alonso. He was on Gasly. There was a point in the race where Zhou Guanyu was on him and he was holding him.
Yep. For a guy that hasn't driven an F1 race, he looked like he was.
He looked like he was 50 Grand Prix deep.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, and that just shows why that guy needs to be on the grid. And we've been preaching this guy's name for how long now to get him back on grid.
Yeah.
Same with Piastri. Get him on the grid. You get him on the grid, the talent pool goes up, the racing becomes that much better. And if we just let whoever pay their way in, it's just going to drop. If you think about it, in all of the world, there is 20 spots in IndyCar and F1, and there is 30 spots in IndyCar. So there's 50 spots for open wheel in the entire world.
Yeah.
Of the pinnacle of open wheel, of North American open wheel and European or worldwide open wheel. So 50 people in the entire world are going to be able to race, 20 of them in an F1 car.
Yeah.
How are you going to do that? Not always talent's going to get you there. It'll be the money. And that's the problem with our sport.
There it is, man. There it is. Another race weekend. Another rant over.
Yeah.
Nah, but this is why we love the pod, though. We love doing the pod. This season, it has been semi-interesting to watch the development and the new rules and regs kind of take over. It hasn't really been interesting in terms of who's competing for the championship, because Max and Red Bull have just been head and shoulders above even his teammate now is just like, well, what's going on there? But it opens these glaring holes and these pockets and these opportunities for discussion that we as passionate fans and members of motorsport have, where we can hopefully kind of enlighten some of the people who might be new to the sport, but also create conversations that can further develop the sport and create interest in the sport. So that's more or less why we have fun doing the podcast, and we appreciate all the support and feedback. For those of you listening via podcast, wherever you get your podcast, you can always stream us. Just search Another Race Weekend. And of course, we are on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe, like, share. Singapore is next. Love Singapore.
I love that. That's a bucket list.
I
want to go to Singapore
so
bad. I would love to. Hey, maybe we can do our first trackside podcast. There we go. I like it. We're gonna do it.
Yeah, Singapore is up next. It's a bit of a long shot for Max to win the championship there. Leclerc would have to have like a DNF or something. But hey,
it's close
enough.
It is Ferrari. It's crazy. It's crazy the fact that we're 7 races to the end of the season and we're talking about clinching the championship already.
Yeah, that's a bit much. I don't think that's really how they wanted 2022 to go. But shouts out to Red Bull and Max. I mean, unstoppable. Since the summer break, we called it right after that race.
Yeah, it was like that's over. That's it. That's done. And then Ferrari's just trying everything, but whatever.
Whatever. It's been another race weekend, and we will talk to you after the Singapore Grand Prix.